Hey, party people. Today, we're going to do some math. We are going to answer a question that I've seen floating around on the internet a ton, which is, why is my 100% polyester dress $300 freaking dollars? Okay. I am not a polyester apologist by any means. I think any of you who have been around here for a split second and a half know that about me already, unless we're talking about recycled polyester, whatever. You get it, right? But I wanted to give you this overview of a garment costing, okay? So that for designers, you can figure out how to cost out your garments, and you can also figure out how to kind of work backwards so that when you are sourcing fabrics and materials for your clothes, you kind of have an idea for, the budget you need to stay under per yardage. Like I can only afford $7 a yard for fabric, $8 a yard for fabric, all right? And for consumers, I want you to know where your money's going. If you're spending $300 on something, this will give you an idea as to how that money is being divvied up. Now, every single company that exists, they're gonna have these numbers be a little bit different from each other, of course. Everyone operates a little bit differently, but I'm giving you a very general, loosey-goosey template, like a framework of how costing works in the garment industry. And then, of course, everyone's got their own deal, all right? So this whole pie equals $300. And let's start by splitting it in half. This whole half is going to the store. Standard wholesale markup, okay? So we're doing wholesale right now, which means the designer makes a thing, marks it up so that they can make some money, sells it to a store, and it could be a big store like Nordstrom, it could be a little side corner boutique, whatever. They mark it up and sell it in their store, okay? And so they've already taken $150, all right? Standard markup wholesale is 2.2, okay? But for easy math, easy visualization, I'm just splitting it in half, okay? So what is a store doing with $150? Are they just pocketing all that? No, okay? They have their own employees, okay? Whether that's store employees helping people or people who are running the online store, whatever shop, whether it's the hosting and the design and the updating all the listings on an online store or the actual upkeep of a physical brick and mortar store, all their overhead, taxes, cleaning, rent, all those things, right? So they have to pay all these things out of that 150, and then whatever's left, the store gets to make a profit, right? So we have 150 here that goes to the designer, okay? The designer also wants to make money, and so we have to take their markup into consideration, okay? So we have how much is the actual cost of the garment and how much of it is their markup, okay? And, okay, listen. This is probably the biggest variable, a designer's markup. Because we've all heard of these luxury brands that cut corners and they mark theirs up like 200, 300, 500%. And then you've also heard of small businesses who can barely eke out like a 20% markup and they're just stuttering along, but they're afraid to raise their prices because people already think their stuff is too expensive anyway, right? Both scenarios exist. And so whatever markup is happening here is like the biggest variable. However, just in my experience, I've seen, I would say anywhere from 30 to 70%, okay, is generally the markup I've seen, 1.3, 1.7, okay? So let's say I'm gonna take 1/3 of this pie, this half of the pie. Visually, I don't think this is even, but whatever, okay? So this is designer profit. So out of $150, let's say it's 30%, this is like $38. Typically, what happens is we forget to cost out all the little nickel and dime things, and we forget things and all that stuff. And so it really eats up into our profit margin. But let's say we have the other costing kind of handled, we actually get to eat $38 per dress if we're very lucky and we're good at math. Okay, so this remainder, we're going to break it up into 3 sections. Okay, and these are the 3 things that make up the cost of a garment. So number 1, we have materials, we have labor, and then we have overhead. And I would kind of split that up evenly. We're all at 38. Okay, 38 times 4 is 152. Okay, what goes into overhead? Studio rent, insurance, taxes, shipping, just materials that do not go into the garment. Office supplies, shipping supplies, all those things a business needs that do not go into the actual garment. Okay? And so, what you're hoping is that you have a lot of orders. And so this is 38 times however many dresses you get sold. And so it's like $1 from each dress is going to insurance, and $1 from, you see what I'm saying? Okay. And then labor. Labor here is not the employees of the business. That comes out of kind of in here. All right. Labor is just literally the people working on the garments. Design staff, so design, product development, all the design development that goes into a garment comes out of overhead. That's why it's more profitable when a garment that's already been worked out and it's been fitted and the grade has been tested can be sold again. Like if it becomes a bestseller, people are like, oh, can I get this in yellow? Can I get this in pink? And then you're like, yes, because you don't have to do anything to the design development. You don't need a new tech pack. Well, you need a new bill of materials, colorway sheet, so that you can put in all the colors for the new style. But essentially, you're just running it again, so you have no new fittings, blah, 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 right? Anything that doesn't require new product development, instantly more profitable because that is coming out of your overhead, okay? So the more pieces you sell, the more you get it, right? This labor is strictly dickly CMT, okay? Cut, make, trim. Cutting out the garment. Making the garment, meaning sewing, typically. And then trim. Trim is anything that is not fabric, that is not sewing. So any embroidery, any adding of buttons. Finishing is more like ironing, putting on a hanger, clipping loose threads, but that's also involved. All of that, the actual labor is just any hands that go on the individual garments to make individual garments, okay? Not all the, production managers, logistics guy, the guy who sources your stuff because you're tired of looking on the internet for stuff. Like, that's not labor, okay? Individual labor for each dress. Okay, so this $38 is supposed to pay to cut all your production, all that stuff. Pattern making, sample development, that's in here. Okay, that's all your upfront costs. Materials, all right, so this is the point of the exercise, right? We're at materials, we have fabric, any closures, right? Zippers, buttons, snaps, hooks and eyes, lacing, any of that, okay? So if you have lacing, then that's more fabric, that's grommets. Any sort of embellishment. So let's say you have an applique, let's say you have some embroidery, let's say you have some beading, does it have any of that? And then structural elements, shoulder pads. Have you ever felt the collar of a shirt or a shirt dress and you felt like the collar and the collar stand are stiffer than the rest of the garment, which is typical on a quality garment? That's because it has some sort of interfacing inside to make it stiffer, sharper, all those nice things. Usually you can see Cuffs on a shirt also a little bit stiffer, okay? Anything that has any bra cups. Listen, the craziest ongoing garment battle I've seen online is women talking about the little foam pads in sports bras. Okay, so any beads you want to end, all of that. Okay, zippers are actually surprisingly expensive. Okay, they're like a couple bucks minimum, even if you buy bulk. They're more like $5-6 if you start getting into like heavy duty outerwear zippers. You know, to me, designers take note. If you cheap out on buttons that sit front and center on a garment, your whole garment's gonna look cheap, okay? Just my professional opinion, all right? So all the fabric goes in there. And so, listen, here, this is what it boils down to, okay? This materials and labor, okay? If you have a little shift dress, little tank dress, okay? And let's say it just has a couple of darts for the boobs and the rest of it is just like this like floaty wonderkin of a polyester sheet. If it costs all this to make this, I would also revolt. I'd be like, what the hell is this? Absolutely not. You do not need $38 worth of materials. There's no closures, there's no embellishment, there's no structure. You just have like, you know, depending on how long the dress is, like 2.5 yards of fabric. No. This dress does not need to be $300. But let's say you've got a bodycon dress made out of performance fabric polyester, and it has all these lots of curving seams around it, and it looks really cool. And then it has like rows of cording and or maybe piping with cording in it, or, you know, like it's got all these panels with elastic, like, oh, you know, like those, maybe like a Christopher Kane style dress from back in the day. Like, if you're talking like super performance fiber, sports bra, like, or maybe it's got a corset underneath so that it has all this understructure underneath and you've got this like floaty dress on top. Like, if it has clearly a lot of work, fit, all these things, and it happens to be polyester, to me that makes sense. Okay, you can't just say, oh, $300 for a polyester dress isn't worth it. You have to kind of assess the whole thing. Like, what kind of polyester is it? Does it have performance, something to it? Maybe it's recycled. It's been processed in a way that makes it more sustainable. Maybe there's a lot of fabric. Like, maybe it's just like the whole thing is like 5 yards of tucks and pins and pleats and just whatever, okay? Before you get to add 3 zippers. Kind of do the math in your head and like, does it have, and please do keep in mind, big companies, they get tons of volume breaks when they order 1,000 zippers, you know, 2,000 yards of fabric. They get all those price breaks, whereas, you know, your single woman owned, you know, making 100 dresses, 50 dresses at a time, she's not getting those price breaks for volume. She's not. I just spent a day at Tex World and everyone's quoting me, well, if you do 600, we'll cut the price. If you do 1,000, we'll cut the price again. That's just how that works. That's probably every industry under the sun. So yeah, you have to think about it like that. Here you go. This is the most generic, very negotiable. And now you may be thinking, what about direct to consumer? You've heard those ads of direct to consumer brands that I will not name, where they're like, we cut out the middleman and pass on the savings to you. Okay, so there's 2 kinds of direct to consumer brands. There's the kind that are only direct to consumer, only sell through their own outlets. And then there's what looks like direct to consumer, but they're actually wholesale brands that have their own stores. Many design brands are like this. Valentino, Rag & Bone, like whatever, like they have their own freestanding stores or their own online store. and they also wholesale to department stores and whatnot, right? Now, if you are a wholesale business that also has your own sales outlets, your pricing must be consistent across the board, okay? If you sell this dress in the stores like, okay, and then you tell the store MSRP, manufacturer's suggested retail price is $300 because you sold it for $150 and you're expecting the store to tack on another $150 and sell it for $300, you can't undercut them and be like, our full price is $250. Not only will that store never work with you again, other stores will see what you did and they won't buy from you either, okay? You have to have comparable, almost exactly the same prices. And so in here, okay, if the store is you get this $150. That does not mean it's also magically profit. You still have to pay your store employees, your shop upkeep fees, your store overhead, all those things out of this money also. However, the reason why brands like to have their own freestanding stores is they get profit from this section and profit from this section in order to be comparable prices to the same clothes they sold to Nordstrom. Okay? So whatever profit they were making here after they paid for all this, and whatever profit they got here, they get to keep all that. And so that is why brands like to have their own stores. It's worth it to them to have their own retail outlets because they get all this, okay? That's the effort. Now, if you're only direct to consumer, you could maybe make this wedge that you have now, if you wanted to make yourself more price competitive, you could make this wedge smaller, okay? But don't think that you can just sell it like this, okay? Don't think that you can sell this dress for $150 because you still have all these costs. If you're doing direct to consumer and you have your own boutique, you have your own online store, you still have to pay for all this stuff. So you can't magically just turn this into a $150 dress and stay in business. Okay, so you do still have to charge more for all this stuff. Maybe your profit pie is a little bit smaller, and so maybe instead of 300, you're at like 260, something like that. That's still a lot cheaper than 300. Okay, so wholesale or direct to consumer, the costing, this is kind of how it shakes out. Again, I don't want to hear from brands who are like, our profits are X margin. We already went over that, okay? This is a very broad template. And I would like you to think about this broad template when you are costing your own garments, designers, and for consumers, I would like you to think about this when you are thinking about buying clothes, okay? And why things cost the way they do, and kind of break it down mentally in your head and see if that makes sense to you, especially this labor part, okay? When you buy that $29 dress, you tell me if anybody's making a fair wage at that point. As a bonus note, previously I had said that you should not charge more for the plus size version of a straight size style, okay? And the number one reason people think that plus sizes should be more expensive is because of materials. But look at how small the materials factors in the whole overall price of things, okay? And so maybe instead of 2.5 yards, you use 3 yards for a dress. In this tiny little piece of the pie, you should be eating that into your marketing costs. People say like, well, we have to develop a new pattern because for our plus size range. You already, if you were smart, had a section in your cost sheet for design development fees. I mean, marketing comes out of here too, okay? And so I don't really want to hear it about the whole plus size. And some people are like, well, there are certain processes that we don't, that only fit straight size pieces of fabric. Oh my God, don't. Just don't. You can't see my face right now, but those of you who've been with me for a minute, I bet you know what face I'm making. I love you guys. All right, so this is why your $300 polyester dress may or may not be worth it, okay? Maybe it's got a ton of beading, embroideries, fringe, tassels, and it takes 5 yards of pin tucking, pleating, and ruffling to make the dress, and that's why it's $300. Or it could look like this and you're just getting ripped off and it's totally not worth it. One or the other, okay? But this is just my effort to get you thinking more thoughtfully about prices of clothes, all right? Drop me your video requests below, all your questions. Please give this video a thumbs up if you learned something new today. Share, subscribe. Check out my new channel, Operation Reentry, and I will see you in the next video.